And hello, I'm Dan Lutz, and I'm here with.
Tank.
We're here on the front lines in the battle against the deep state, the cabal, the Lumadonkeys, and all those that wish to enslave all of humanity for their own selfish reasons. And we're here with some very exciting news. Q is back, so we're ready to proceed. There's a lot happening in the world, and I know there's some other things, repercussions coming from our last couple of days of broadcast. So you want to give us an update on those things too, Tank?
Yes, I have now been in contact with 4 different real task forces, small and large, as well as I have some different contacts out to some various militia groups to get their assistance, and they've been very forthcoming and helpful to look into it. One group is right in the perfect pathway to assist, and so that's very helpful. And we were able to give them some information today because some of the organizations they were working with, when they explained to us what they were doing, they were a good group, small group, but a good group of guys that were trying to make some changes. And they started telling us what they were doing, and they're rescuing prostitutes that have been trafficked and kids, and they go into the homeless communities, and they're very hands-on kind of guys. And then they just they turn them over to different groups, and we explained how those different groups are working and what's happening, which was very enlightening to them, and they were very much about not letting that happen anymore. So that was, if nothing else, we were able to hopefully divert people getting put back into the child pedophile service or prostitution and pedophile service system. So we got that. We also spoke to 3 attorneys since last night that are, one was relatively clueless and one basically advised, that you can always leave the area where you live. We said if the jurisdiction is not cooperating or abiding by the laws. And by the way, for the record, that made me furious. And I said, why should people have to leave where they live because someone else is corrupt? That never made sense to me. Why should I have to run away? If you run away today, you'll be running away your whole life because it's collapsing around you, right? But if you stand up and just do something about it, don't let it happen, and you get public support, you get support of the people around you, and just say, this is not right. And we were able to get the appropriate files and evidence to all the right people. And we also reached out through some back channels and, through some public channels to President Trump to see if possibly, allegedly, according to Timothy Homeseth, him and Melania, they intervened on his behalf, right? So, Abel Danger said that President Trump was willing to write an executive order to get these certain kids home. So, I figure I'll put it to the test. I have a couple connections that, lead that way, and through back channels, and so I notified them. Now I don't know if that will yield any fruit, but I figure at very least we have legal teams that are actually working on the appropriate filing, as well as common law lawyers who are working on a filing as well. And I had an amazing conversation with an attorney, anti-vax attorney, who was explaining to me how to do this and really acknowledging that she has successfully argued to have vaccines recalled in California, and explained how what you don't do is you're not under their jurisdiction. You don't have to appeal to them to do anything. Mm-hmm. They work for you. They are public servants, and we are the public, right? So by standing up for the people and citing that these are violations against humanity, against crimes against humanity that are taking place both with Child Protective Services and with vaccines, for that matter. And there is no real logic when you actually look at the evidence. Anybody looking at it in any other case would just look at it and say, well, none of this makes sense. And the only way that they trick people is because they have more knowledge of the law than the average person. But that doesn't apply to us, because there's no way in hell that I'm going to sit there and let a judge tell me something, spin some lie, or anyone, these attorneys or any of the other ones, spin some lie around us without citing the very basic, essential components of our fundamental rights written in the Constitution. And one of those rights is that we have the responsibility for the care, custody, and control of our children. And no one has the right to come in and just take your children away. Certainly not in a case where you have a father who has already admitted in court and on the record that he has raped the wife, he has, that the child was abused, he has sodomized the wife. It was known the child was sodomized, so much so that he had to have rectal reconstructive surgery. And one of the things that came up today, when speaking to lawyers, they said, well, what you need to do is get a psychiatrist who says that she's mentally sound. And I'm like, that's already been done. That was done right from the beginning, and all it took was the GAL, which I guess is the representative for the child, and the GAL, without interviewing Kara, without doing anything to make an effort to, find out who she was, she decided that she was suffering from PTSD and therefore was unfit to be a mother. And so the best option the child had was to go and be returned to the abusive father and grandfather where he lives. So how about that for a tragedy? So what crack was the judge smoking there? I love, by the way, anybody. Now, I watched this happen today. I watched the number of views on this video. And the first time I saw it so quickly, it was about 544, I think was what I saw. I came back a couple hours later, it is at 303. I'm like, that's really aggressive that they actually traveled back in time to erase people from viewing. So that's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
So
I've seen that.
Yeah, and so they're trying to block that, but I will tell you, please go to the Speak Project on YouTube. I think Sid's already posted 4 more videos already, right? So, because we did a bunch of interviews this weekend. I interviewed a doctor about the vaccines, last night in the midst of everything else we were doing. Mm-hmm. And those things are already up, and he confirms a lot of things that we know about. He's a geriatric specialist, and he confirmed basically that they take, people that are over 65 years old and they give them a mega dose of the flu vaccine, right? And I asked him as a geriatric specialist, I'm like, is that a normal practice to take elderly people and give them a larger dose, being that generally they're on concomitant medication, meaning they have several medications that are hitting the same pathways in the liver and the kidneys, mm-hmm. and this causes all types of issues, in their ability to absorb and to process these drugs. Would you give them something where you're getting a super dose? And their argument, well, yeah, we have to give them a super dose to really push their immune system. Which I think is a true statement, right? It's to really push their immune system. Like, that way we know if we're going to kill them off or not. And this is actually something that was written into Obamacare as well, that I remember someone pointing out to me years ago. I can't prove it at the moment, but I remember someone explained this to me. And I believe it, but right now I generally don't like to talk things I haven't seen, but I remember hearing about this, that, that Obamacare was designed around, part of it was just basically getting rid of our elderly, And that being said, I will say, if they didn't inflict on us the disease of aging, because we don't need to age this way, it just isn't the way the body's made. We only age this way because we're being devoured by toxins that they're putting in everything. And because all these toxins are in everything we do, everything we touch, everything we taste, feel, all these other things, because we're just surrounded by and inundated in toxins, your body starts to age. You have all types of things that are being put in your food, like canola oil. Simplicity of canola oil, it'll take it and it'll create a pathway for parasites to get in and release in your body like shrapnel in your veins and arteries, right? So anyways, but
yeah, I know. It's just
so
all these other these oils that are. I've had a long battle against these other oils. The only ones that I went with is I'd go with straight butter, right, or like coconut oil or olive oil, and that's it. And it would be the. Because it always, I knew that there's something wrong with it. From the very beginning, I didn't even like the taste of like corn oil or the others that my mother would cook with it. Oh, it's vegetable oil. It's good for you.
Clever name.
Yeah, right. It's like, really? Okay. How do you squeeze that celery and get oil out of it. I don't know.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, well.
Yeah, so I mean, all this, just one tragedy after another, basically, is what I see with all this stuff.
Right.
And but we did talk to the lawyers, and we have already started to file the charge I put on them is urgent legal action. We were going back and forth with some members of that team today, and a lot of people are upset because this information was delivered with all the files and all the evidence on August 17th. Now, at least 100 people affiliated with the Children's Crusade had this information on August 17th. Now, I don't know how Phil's team works, but here's what I know about myself. I know that I will miss emails, right? I know that. Just that's how I am, right? Fortunately, I have an incredible team around me who make sure that I don't drop the ball, right?
Right.
And they're always making sure, like, hey, you see this? And I'm like, no. And then they tell me what it is, right? And then we go through it. We make sure that if it's actionable, we take action. If it's something to ignore, we ignore it. But but I don't see how anybody could have seen this evidence as blatant as it is, because when it comes to kids, now I don't claim that this is something we are specializing in, right? We don't. This is not something that Create
Right.
Change has made a priority. Now, this is something that we have people in our organization who we plan to fund, but it's not something that we ourselves were looking at as making a priority, other than just by the sheer, coincidence of just doing what every human being should do, which is protect our children.
Right.
But I said the same thing about vaccines, I guess Lisa reminded me about 3 months ago. I said, that's not my fight. But now here I am, and apparently it is my fight, right? And because I'm going to make sure that it's been brought to my front doorstep, right?
Right.
And but all these things are connected. That's the only reason why I mentioned them, right? They get your child into child protective services, and it's not just vaccines that they'll give your child without consideration, right? They'll give them all types of opioids because kids go in and they suffer from depression. Because if you listen to Ron Davis, he talks about kids dying from depression, from being separated from their parents. He talks about mothers committing suicide because they basically been told that they're an unfit mother, right? What a tragedy that is. That you could tell a mother that who's doing the best she can to raise her child. And in many cases, in a broken society where they devoured the families, separated the husbands from the wives, and made it so often, there's more. I remember when I was a teacher in South Jamaica, Queens. And I remember it was like 70% of the kids were being raised by a single parent household.
Yeah.
And that's done intentionally. Matter of fact, they actually encourage you to get divorced,
Right.
so you can collect more money from welfare, things like that.
Yeah.
And,
I always
and
thought
that's
that
all
was
by design.
Yeah.
You weaken the family unit, right?
Yep.
So that's going on. But I will say this: I fully expect to make a lot of mistakes going down this path. Just gonna tell you up front.
Yeah.
But you know what I'm not gonna do? I'm not gonna tell mothers that I'm gonna come through for her and sit on my ass and just talk about it. We have the Speak Project was formed not because we have a fervent desire to be a media company. That is not the origins of the Speak Project. The Speak Project is a result because we have an urgent desire to change the world and to take action. And because we don't think that anybody has the whole story or enough of the story and are talking about it. And those who do have more of the story, they're covering it up because they're part of another plan.
Right.
And in their plan, it involves all of us getting killed. So it's a big deal, to actually have the truth, but not just have the truth and be willing to share it. Because that's the biggest problem I see is all these guys who, they spend half their shows telling you how important they are, right? Like, I got this video of Phil McConnell saying, everybody's going to feel real stupid when they realize who I work for. You know what? That doesn't make you any more credible. I mean, you know what? I think Field's gonna feel real stupid when he finds out who he works for, and I think that's the problem. As for me, you know what? I know who I work for. I work for my kids. I work for the people. I work with the highest authority on the planet. I work with Dan. I work with my whole team, right? But as far as working for people, the people I really work for is my kids and other people, so that we can have a harmonious existence.
Right.
So I don't need to boast about my credentials. And I really think that part of being a man, I just feel like part of it is us standing on our own integrity, our own conduct and actions and behavior. I don't feel like we should have to constantly remind people how important we are. Because I'm no more important than any other father is to his kids, right? So,
yeah.
But anyways,
well, it's like I was just thinking about something while you're talking about. I just had this someone that was challenging me in a chat, right, about things that were technical, right, and then they were saying, well, who are you to say this or say that, and what do you? Well, I had to now I was challenged, right? So now I had to blow my horn on my technical background, right? And so
right.
that was there's times when you've got to let people know what's going on. When we're we started this on GCR, the Big Lie. Why? Because I had specific experiences in related to what's going on in the GCR. Nothing more than that, right? And now that's probably unusual compared to most people in the GCR. That's basically they buy some currency and they watch some chat rooms.
Right.
I went out and did things, right? I traveled the planet. I went to China. I went to Laos. I went to Sri Lanka and Philippines. So there's so many things that that led me to have a interesting aspect of understanding of what's behind this. People in my past and everything else. But I don't try to basically say throw credentials around and say, hey, this is why I'm important in the GCR.
Yep. No, Dan, I look at it like this. I don't remember ever asking you even what your credentials were, right?
Right.
I just know that we had a conversation.
Yeah.
And in our conversation, I
still don't know what your credentials are.
What's that?
I said I still don't know what your credentials are. I've never gone and I've never looked you up. I didn't Google you. I didn't go look you up on Dinar Chronicles or any of those other places and see what you said in the past. I didn't not once. It doesn't matter, because I'm looking at where we're going from here, and what we're talking about. I can know from our conversation that you have your experience in the GCR. I mean, I don't doubt anything that you're telling me, right? Because I don't have a reason to doubt you.
Right. And I don't think that's common. And I think it's one of the things that you and I have in common, right? Like we just talked, had a regular conversation, and we're like, hey, we should do a show, and we did, right?
Yeah.
And then who knew it would be here? But
240.
But this, my friend David Hayden, right? Now David Hayden is, he's on the cover of Forbes magazine as part of the tech revolution in like 1999, right? He was intricate, one of the first people to ever bring, the cloud technology to a real platform. He had the first, one of the first search engines called Magellan. He helped create the voiceover technology that we use now to like send messages. These are all very impressive things he had, right?
Yeah.
But when we first talked, right, I talked to him for almost 2 years before I ever did a Google search on him. And as far as I knew, right, because he's also very spiritual, right? And he was always telling me about galactics and things like that, right? In the beginning we talked. So I just kind of pictured him like, as this old school surfer dude, right? and he was my friend. We would just talk, and it wasn't until maybe almost 2 years before somebody told me that's David Hayden, like for Forbes magazine. I was like, that's funny.
Yeah, that guy.
My point is, I just don't believe in being starstruck by anyone.
Yeah.
It's like,
well, I think that's probably
why I appreciate people for who they are.
Yeah, I never followed stars. Though I had my favorites. But I would never follow movie stars. That wouldn't mean anything. Musicians. I had my favorite musicians, but did I? I wasn't a what do they call it, fanboy. I didn't never just chase them down just because I said, oh, I think it's time to go. And I enjoy myself immensely, but it's just to be part of the music on that front. But now all of the I've been in rooms filled with billionaires, right? And it wasn't like I planned to be there. It just happened to occur, right?
Right.
My father-in-law was the fourth richest man in India. Did I know that at the time? No, I didn't even know until 10 years after he died.
Wow.
And they're still fighting over the estate.
But I think that is what opens doors all the time, right? It's like my best friends and I, we evangelized the Bible school in Queens, and we had no idea what we were doing, right? No idea. I mean, and it was so we were constantly in meetings and expanding and growing and doing stuff, and our rule was just act like you've been there before. so everything we did, we just act like we've done this a million times.
Yeah.
And it works. It works.
Yeah. No, you're supposed to be here? Well, yes. It's when you look lost and don't know what you're doing, then people say, what are you doing?
Yeah, like, I'm fine. I'm here. So, yeah. Anyways. So basically we have a lot of things moving, and I put a lot of urgency on it, and tried my best to anybody that could help.
Is there a Kim update for today?
I don't have a Kim update. On Friday though, on Thursday she told me that she had brought down Echelon, and Echelon is basically kind of how they've controlled the world, right? Like the first real deep state NSA, when the NSA was just like a myth, right? NSA was just when they were like doing remote viewing, CIA, and all types of crazy stuff like that, like doing large manifestations, working on all that stuff. It all goes back to the Echelon system, where they, like the monster behind social media, probably, it gathers all our data. So she took that system down, and then she also took down ANA, which is an acronym that stands for something. Sid told me the other day, but it's basically where all the birth certificate bonds are registered, and all the different ways that they would leverage human assets, right? The numbering system, like all I think it runs out of Belgium, if I remember when Kim explained it a long time ago. All this stuff all this information's there, and she took that system down as well. And I believe that was what they were using, if I understand this correctly, because they were using this to be kind of the final blockade to prevent certain things from coming in, because they were still able to leverage. I think actually the MERS system is probably registered there as well. The mortgage electronic registration system.
Right.
And in this, they could leverage us still in the banking system. So that's probably what, and this is just my theory, Kim didn't tell me this, that's probably what kept them afloat, right? So if she would have taken that down first, they would have had all this money still there in the banks, right? That they could have, held on to and had a plan. But because she drained the entire financial system, she's cut them off on every path they wanted to go, and kept doing that over and over and over again. Every time something new would pop up, she would take apart this system, take apart that system, until she has absolute control of the banking system, and she's actually created a brand new transfer system, right? And I find that to be an interesting coincidence that went down, and the echelon system at the same time that the new 8chan comes back up, right?
Yeah.
Which kind of supports my theory on, who is Q and what the Q stands for. Because, in my opinion, Q is definitely an AI. For them to predict to the day, 93 days,
right.
I mean, I'm sorry, but there's just no plan that's executed that perfectly that you are predicting it to that.
Well, sometimes,
exact.
Q announced a couple times that they were ahead by a couple of days of their schedule.
Yeah, but I think that has to do with timeline shifts, or misinformation intentionally put out.
It could be, yeah.
Well, yeah, that's just my theory. See, we can do conspiracy theory here as well as fact. No.
Right.
But the difference is we tell you. We don't present it as fact and try to make ourselves look important. So, just an idea.
Well, yeah, we have to banter about different theories because, sometimes information comes about. It's brainstorming, really. Just because they came up with the term conspiracy theory to mean that it shouldn't be believed. That means no conspiracy is real. If you have a theory about a conspiracy, that means it's not real. Well, that's ridiculous.
Right. I mean, everything. I mean, you have scientific theory. Does that mean that all scientific theory is, not real? It's like everything starts with a hypothesis. The whole idea, a hypothesis is basically a guess, an educated guess. Like, that's what, conspiracy theories are. And you know what? And it's based on evidence, So it's amazing how diligent they are to try to completely destroy just practical, intelligent thought, right? I'm interviewing a pharmacist tomorrow, and I spoke to her, and she got fired from her job, this pharmacist. And she got fired from her job because she was explaining and educating the patient. So the reason why she got fired from her job for educating the patient is because the the drugstores, right? I think she works for like a chain like CVS. The drugstores, they pander to the drug companies, and so she got fired because that's not what the drug companies want her to do. Right. Because so much of the money comes from the vaccines. So that disrupts their plan. It's like, wait a minute, this is a controlled market we created. You're messing up our system of lying to the public and have them blindly accept the vaccine. But if what we know about the vaccines is accurate, it would stand to, there's a very reasonable evidence to imply that the vaccines are being used to actually deafen our logical intelligence and disconnect us from our emotional and spiritual values, right?
Right.
The things that we deem to be important. And so, with that being said, they're like, look, just get the vaccine in, right? And shut them up. Because it won't be long after that, you stop arguing.
Right. Yeah, give them the vaccine, Hey, they're not complying. Have a vaccine.
You know what you need is more vaccine. Yeah.
We need to give you a mega dose. Jumpstart your immune system.
Yeah. Anybody out there, you got to get this. You got to find the trailer for this video game that I've been talking about, because I realize video games now are like the new, the new version of their consent, right? Like they're getting our consent through the video games, because you got this video game out there of this whole world that exists. It's like post-apocalypse, and everyone's miserable, right? So what they do is, because people are just dying from depression, because the world is so bad, they create this drug that basically has everyone in a delusional state where no one sees what's really going on. And then, like, one day, this one guy, the whole video game is about this one guy who stops taking his happy pill. Like, literally, I think it's called a happy pill or joy or something like that.
You mean a fun vaccination?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying, right? Doesn't that sound like the fun vac, right? So, I mean, actually call fun. Yeah. So, like, he's sitting there, like, they all think they're breaking a pinata based on their vaccine, or based on their pill they're taking, and the guy who stops taking it realizes they're just devouring a rat that's laying on the table.
Wow.
It's just a scary game, man. It's a scary game. really aggressive.
Yeah, that's pretty scary.
Well, my 13-year-old sons, they're tuned in, right? They're always like showing me things that like support. They're like they know
reconnaissance for the youth.
Yeah, they're in it. I saw something else that somebody, like there's some article in the Guardian that somebody asked Hillary Clinton. They were like, how did you kill Jeffrey Epstein? Was the question.
Oh, I strangled him personally. They got me into there and they held him down for me while I strangled him.
Like, how dare you let our secrets out? Don't betray us. Yeah.
That's it. So, keep their secrets. Keep their secrets.
Yeah, so, I realize that this stuff is, it's hard to stomach, It's really hard to stomach, and I think, I really want to encourage people that it's better to take action and do something about it and be part of it. Don't shy away from it. It's ugly and awful. But as for me, I would rather be part of the ugly and awful and changing it
right.
than know it was ugly and awful and I just ignored it.
Right. That's definitely time to make that decision to get your hands dirty.
Yeah.
Put some elbow grease into it.
Right.
And then things will change.
That's right.
We know that we're making that happen now anyway. We see evidence of it all around us. So I mean, we made quite an impact on the GCR world. Woke up a bunch of people up in the higher echelons of things, saying, this doesn't never seem right to me. So it's just a little bit of reflection.
Yeah. So Dan, I think Dan and I were talking about this before the call. To anybody who's interested or wants this done, I really, the end or the beginning, I guess, is nigh, right? It's right here, and I will say that Wednesday we're going to do another Q&A, and we'll announce that officially. We'll put out official time, but the goal is to be the last discussion we ever need to have.
The goal, I think that's the goal, yeah. Okay.
The goal is to just be able to, one last time, we're going to do Q&A.
GCR, the big lie, Q&A.
Right. And we're going to talk about it one last time. Anybody who has questions, anybody who has friends that are on the fence, who are out there. And I'm specifically doing this for the some of the comments that came back to me from the Able Danger group, right? Because Able Danger lends a lot of credibility, right? If he's credible, which he's not. But if he was credible, he lends a lot of credibility to the GCR itself, because he's always talking about this big financial reset that has to happen now. And that's not to say that there doesn't have to be a financial reset. There does.
Right.
But it's not through the currency. It's not through this massive currency revaluation. It's not through the currencies that people are holding, right? And every version of that, anybody can look at any economic model, and it leads to a collapse and failure of the global economy. Yeah. There's no way out of it.
Well, let me give my example that I like to bring up, because it's just about the math of it. So and we can say how big the currency world is for the people waiting for their revaluation is much bigger than 1 million people, right? So, but let's just take 1 million people. Let's say all they have is $100 trillion note, right? And so can you imagine 1 million people where it's revalued at 1 to 1? Right? That's 100 trillion. Right? times a million.
You're windy, Dan. You're windy.
Am I? Give me a moment then. Okay, so that's 100 million. I'm sorry, yeah, 100 trillion times a million. Right? So that's 6 zeros after the trillion, 100 trillion. I don't know what that number is, but it's 100 trillion is the world GNP for 1 year.
$141 trillion a year is the global GDP.
Well, let's round down.
Product.
Let's just round down to 100 trillion. One of those notes, but you've got 1 million people with those, right? So that's already out of scale. So let's just say those people, those 1 million people with this super amount of money, all great intentions, wonderful people, want to go do good things in the world. What is the first thing they're going to do? Well, they're going to go and buy things, everything that they wanted, right? They're going to be buying all the best cars. All the Bentleys are gone because they don't have 1 million Bentleys that they make every year, right? So what's going to happen to the cost of the Bentley? Well, you've got now 1 million people trying to buy the Bentley. What's going to be the price of the Bentley? Well, it's no longer, $1 million. It's now 100 million. Right? Well, what's the effect of all the Lexuses and the Acuras and the BMWs and the Mercedes after that? Jaguars, all the luxury car prices suddenly are not, 50,000 or 100,000 or $500,000. They're all $1 million. So, well, that's no problem. You've got all this money. You can spend it, no problem, right? What about the rest of the people? What about the billion people? Not, let's just say, we'll cut it down to 7 billion plus 1 million in the population of the world. So there's us 7 billion people that don't have that money. Oh, you're going to hire them and pay them. What are you going to pay them enough so they can buy a car too? Okay, so now what are you going to pay them? $1 million a year? So now the inflation is going to just run away like mad. Right? It's like mad. So you won't be able to buy food. The stores will be filled with food, but it's only those 1 million people that have all that money. They're now the enemies of the whole 7 billion.
Yep.
Right? And what about the guys behind the scenes? The banksters, the cabal? They're just laughing at you because now you're holding the bag.
Right.
Off with their heads. Let's get their adrenochrome. As they convince everyone that since there was no food anywhere, you might as well eat your neighbor. Especially
right.
if they were old and we gave them extra heavy duty flu shots and they're gonna die anyway. Let's just barbecue them tonight. But let's get those guys. While we enjoy the barbecue. So they just transform the whole world based upon your good ideas and intentions to do good things with this super amounts of money. So stop living in the fantasy and make something happen today. Get off your butt,
Yep.
Stand up, go and do something.
Agreed. That has been the charge the whole time. I mean, always, right? They disabled everyone. A long time ago, you had this, I believe I have these names right. I think this is right. But what was told to me is there's 2 science fiction authors, Ursula K. Le Guin and L. Ron Hubbard. And they made a bet to see who could take a science fiction book and turn it into a religion. So L. Ron Hubbard wrote Dianetics, which became Scientology. So I guess he won the bet. But Ursula K. Le Guin wrote a book called The Foundation, I believe it's called. And in The Foundation, it talked about this futuristic society where everyone was told there was this cataclysmic event that was coming. So the whole society stopped inventing and creating and making anything. And everyone became solely dedicated to preserving their history. So all they did was create this galactic encyclopedia, so that when their planet society was destroyed, they, you know, that they had records of it somewhere. Their history, their legacy was, preserved. And then the prophet was the guy who came up with this idea, and he had like a holographic thing like out of Star Wars, when Princess Leia shows up, and they were supposed to open it at a certain date. And when they opened it up, he came out and said, by now all society should be stagnant, right? And that was the plan the whole time. And there was more to it, but I don't remember now. But I just remember thinking like, I guess they kind of both won, right? Because in reality, Scientology exists, but also our society really has become stagnant. And if you ever listen to Kim on any of these interviews, she actually talks about how far behind we are as a race because of the limitations that they've presented to us as reality.
Right.
And none of them are real. So our history has been completely modified. And which is, I love history. I love to look at history, but I'm always looking from both perspectives, both sides of the war. And you know what? And I realize it's almost impossible to get really accurate information, right? Because you don't know what's real.
Yeah, right.
You don't know all the factors.
Yeah. Our history has been, tampered with. We don't know what the true history is. There's evidence all around us, and then they downplay it. Pyramid system around the planet from China to, off the islands in Antarctica. There's pyramids everywhere on the planet. What is it there for? What is it? Is it a power system? Wow. We had Tesla the last 100 years. Where would we have been if Tesla was supported in all the things that he wanted to do? We'd be flying around in anti-gravity cars. There'd be cities in the sky, So we've been held back.
Right.
And we are amazing engineers. We're amazing. I'm an engineer, so we're amazing people. We can get anything that we can think of. We can create. And we're sitting here waiting for dinars to pay off.
And by the way, I'm very much in support of the people. I understand. I was there. And I can tell you exactly what they did. They took all the dreamers, the idealists, the inventors, the healers, the, people that are, have memory of their galactic council, people that are really, in many ways, very intelligent, very creative people that you want around to build a new world, right? But there's an infinite number of timelines constantly taking place. The double split test literally shows us that all possibilities are happening at all times, right? So one thing leads to another, and what you do affects both the future and the past, right? In this moment. And that's why your most powerful moment is the moment that you are in right now, right? And so in this, people got sold on, somebody, like seeing something in meditation or whatever, or, some out-of-body experience. They experienced it, but they saw it from one perspective. Now, when you see something from one perspective, and that's the only thing you make a judgment on, it is inevitably wrong, because there's more to the story. And until you come up higher to see the whole perspective, you'll constantly be, spewing out things that are just not complete, right? And maybe they're accurate from one view, but there's more to the story. And we have to consider, there was a time on the planet when you had, in the 90s, where you had all of these ascended masters that were in bodies, right? And they were preparing people for a cataclysmic timeline, right? That's why they all disappeared in 1999, right? And they all talked about a cataclysmic timeline, right? Now, one of these ascended masters, actually, President Trump would go and see. And this ascended master told then Donald Trump that he was going to be president one day. Now, clearly, he was looking at a different timeline, right? So part of in this planning, I believe they were able to foresee different possible realities, right? But in this, right, this is the big upset, right? If you become president, that's the only way out, right? That's what upsets the whole system, because we have been through these timelines repeatedly, right? And as we've gone through the timelines, we've failed each time. And the biggest failure, believe it or not, is because there is a quantum system of natural intelligence that's been on this planet for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. hundreds of thousands, if I understand correctly. And it has mapped every single aspect, the growth and development of every living being, every inanimate object on the planet, understands how everything works. And in this, it was still limited in the information it was gathering about humanity. So when you see the League of Rome and they say that the Earth has a cancer and it's humanity, they're reflecting the views and the ideology that they were implanting in the quantum system. And it wasn't until Kim got a hold of the system in 2012 that in the first 3 months she had it, she reprogrammed it to gather all the information about humanity, which we would see as a breach of privacy. But by giving all the information, it was then able to look at the aspects of humanity which are redeemable. It was able to look at things like love and nobility and courage. So all the things about the beauty of humanity, and realize it's not humanity that's the problem on the planet. Because the problem is you've taken humanity, which is naturally caring, naturally trusting, naturally giving, naturally generous, naturally kind. That's what's natural to us. And you know how you know that? Look at any kid. 99% of kids, when you watch them, they will, little babies, 2 years old, they will help another baby that's younger than them, 1 year old, right?
Yeah.
Show them how to walk, show them how to throw, right? They naturally help each other because that's who we are. We're naturally teachers. We're naturally healers. When another little kid gets, scuffed up, their brother will run and tell them, Mom, help them up or carry them home. And when you leave kids, you abandon them. You abandon them out in some ghetto somewhere. Those kids will find a way to survive, and they will stick together. It's amazing. That's human nature. Is not just to survive, but to thrive and to care for each other. That's how we are. So they've destroyed so much of that, and what humanity has done to its credit is every time we have adapted to make it here, to make it this far. So don't let anybody tell you we're less than any other galactic race. To them, we're galactics, right? And we have a divine spark in us, right? And part of what we're doing here is demonstrating the power of that, being able to use it for the greatest good. That's the opportunity we have now.
I think we're super galactics.
Super galactics. That's our next show.
Oh, okay.
The Galactic Danicorn. It's gonna be awesome.
All right. Well, it just means I'm always I think that we have so much potential that we've been holding back on, really, and it's really it looked to me in the political scene, because I was always into politics. It's like, what is going on? Why is it so not changing? Why? I mean, everyone goes in and says they're going to change this, change it, and then it doesn't happen. Whether it was like the guy, one guy was out of Arizona that he ran just specifically on getting rid of chemtrails and getting to the bottom of chemtrails. After his first year there in Congress, yeah, he was going after it. Second year, not a word, not one more word came out of his mouth about chemtrails. Wouldn't answer any questions.
Yeah, so, one bad experience, one bad video. If you're doing something terrible, people do that. You start to get for yourself.
So they put him under control. They put him under they were all into control.
Yep. And that is what happens. This is my favorite tweet of the day, the best tweet I've ever seen today. Chuck Schumer comes out, right? Chuck, who I feel like Chuck Schumer is always dressed in drag, just the opposite way that we're used to. He's got that vibe to me. But so Chuck Schumer comes out and says, New York, city's so nice, they named it twice. If you could make it there, you could make it anywhere. And then he goes, ... Trump can't. And I'm sure Chuck Schumer wrote that. He was like, yeah, I got him. And then this other guy posted, he goes, he's a billionaire who became president. I feel like he did okay.
He kind of made it, yeah.
I'd say he passed. There's actually Trump Towers, right? I mean, we have buildings named after you in New York. I feel like,
Yeah, around the world, except for Russia. But he got business everywhere in the world except for Russia, and they accused him of Russian collusion because he had a meeting. One of his people, I don't even know who it was. They had a meeting in Russia about having a building there, and that oh, he
Yeah.
wants to he wants to do a deal with Russia. He's making a business deal, and it didn't happen. I know, so stupid.
These whole things.
Well, at least right now they've it's totally exposed this. If you look, also the Republicans are all firmly behind Trump right now, which is another interesting effect of this impeachment. It wasn't like there's a few here and there that are going around. Trump over the last 2 years has really galvanized all the Republicans that are elected. But not only that, everywhere he goes to do an election, there's this election day, isn't it? Is it election day or is it tomorrow? So election day today. He's going, and whoever he basically endorses wins. Right? So he's doing all these rallies, and he's the kingmaker right now. And so he's just gathering people, not just in America, but around the world. And so we can see all the leaders, lining up behind him to say, let's lead us out of darkness. This is more than 40 years wandering in the wilderness. Right. So that's, it's time to move on.
They keep trying to, like, he was at the UFC fight the other night, President Trump, right? And, they said, the BCC tried to say, President Trump comes out to booze the UFC fight. No, he didn't. I have the video of it. They were chanting Donald Trump at USA. It's like they just pervert everything. It's just disgusting for even allowed to do it.
Yeah.
It's like,
I heard that too, right?
It's acceptable to anyone.
I heard them say it, right? And I said, oh, really? So I started listening. I didn't hear any boo. I heard no boo. I heard a lot of noise. I couldn't make out what it was saying, but I didn't hear any boos. I said, are there any boos? Oh, well, I just blew it off, right? But really, I should have known better. they're not going to basically show, have. But the thing is there is always going to be, some malcontents, no matter what, right? That they're going to be opposite. That's natural. There'll be 3%. No matter what you do, you'll never convince them. But
well, I'm really convinced, and I really want the research to be done, that there is batches of flu vaccine that are going around right now with the VMAT2 in it.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the reason why you have people who just can't respond to intelligent trains of thought. The way they describe it is religious fanaticism, right? Yeah. That they're going to shut off. But in reality, you can be fanatic about anything. I joke about this all the time. It's like, it doesn't matter if my religion is CrossFit, right? It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, like, I have the right to have that religious belief that says I shouldn't have to inject my child with aluminum, right? Like,
well, remember, they always tell you what they're going to do, right? They always have to tell you. So they're going to vaccinate you against fun. Right? They'll say it's about fundamentalism, but it's really fun vaccination.
Fun.
So,
right, and they're counting on us to kill each other, right? So you don't vaccinate everybody. You vaccinate part of the population who's so irrational when they're presented with facts over and over. I mean, when this woman, what was it? Was it Kathy Hill? Who stepped out from Congress?
Yeah.
Now, she's still saying she's just furious about, Blasey Ford, who accused Kavanaugh. She's still mad about it. Blasey Ford came out and admitted that she misidentified him. Why are you mad about it? She misidentified him. He's not the right guy. So what are you mad about? That she's a liar? Or let's give her the benefit of the doubt. She made a mistake, right? She made a mistake. Okay? She made a mistake either way. Why are you mad at Kavanaugh? Why are you mad at Trump?
Right.
Yeah? So the logic doesn't even make sense, right?
Right.
But what would make sense is that part of your brain that would get behind something that you would have previously believed in, right? Because what does President Trump talk about? Prosperity for America, keeping America safe. How can you be against that?
Right.
It's only in this perverse world where, I really believe that they've taken this fund back and they've already issued it.
Well, is there a cure for this fund vaccination? How about that?
Yeah, actually, anybody who wants to, it's worth the time. The forensic nurse, she goes into this the other night on a show. I think it's broken up into segments, but she talks about this specific kind of magnesium detox. I believe it's some kind of magnesium chloride that you can put in some kind of foot detox, and it literally will just pull the toxins out of your body and pull the heavy metals out of your body. And also, so does Robert Vaughn. He talks about a way to do it. I haven't submitted it to memory entirely, but they both talk about it. So there is ways. Basically, what you're dealing with is heavy metal poisoning.
Right.
But the miracle of the human body is the human body will heal itself.
Right.
All right. Now, if you restore your immune system, you give it the proper nutrients to build with, and then you start to take away the blockages, that will relieve the inflammation, that will relieve the conditions that we suffer with, that as a population we're suffering with, right?
Right.
And this is very common with what's happening with the vaccines, right? Because they talk about this, that it's actually in the prescribing information, the PI, the package inserts, right, that you're supposed to get. And it talks about how this vaccine may cause SIDS, right? Sudden infant death syndrome. Now, the sudden infant death syndrome, basically what's happening is the vaccines are causing, an inflammatory condition as it opens up the blood-brain barrier with this polysorbate 80, and basically cooking the brain with the aluminum. And now the baby is, unable to function normally, right? And inevitably has some kind of brain damage and dies in sleep because it can't function because the brain can't communicate with the body. It wasn't ready for it. So that's the real origin of the sudden infant death syndrome. And I would dare say, before you had heavy vaccinations, you don't have sudden infant death syndrome, right? You don't have SIDS. It didn't exist, right?
Right.
Meanwhile, now that's true. You could back that up with evidence and go back through and say, well, I'm not saying no child ever died from SIDS, but the commonality of it that we see now.
Well,
and then
anything called a syndrome, I have an issue with. It's like syndrome. It's artificial, right? It's something that is. It's like, where did it come from? Like, if this wasn't happening, there's not the measles syndrome. There's no chickenpox syndrome. It's like a symptoms of something. Well, what's the symptom? Death, and they're an infant. Sudden infant death syndrome. I mean, there's something wrong with it, right? They're telling us that it's basically not real. It's not. There is a cause, but not what they're saying, right? It's not like it's just sudden. It's like it was something just suddenly happens. No, it just doesn't suddenly happen. Something happened to the child,
right,
to cause it.
It's also the supervillain in the movie The Incredibles. So syndrome. Just side note.
Yeah.
So it can't be good. It can't be good. So so I mean, you have all this stuff going on. I mean, and it's really they're adding. I mean, it's alarming to think there's 72 of the vaccine, right? But the real agenda is what needs to be looked at. And I spoke to the lawyer who really, one of the lawyers who really has a great plan on this. And it's something we can't rest on. We can't sleep on it. It's something we have to move on. Now, it's something we are changing and going to change. But unlike, folks want to say sit back and enjoy the show, which I get, it's catchy and everybody loves that because we love to sit around and watch other people do stuff. I don't feel that way at all. What I feel like is get involved, right? It reminds me, man, I went to this Broadway show one time. It was called Tony and Tina's Wedding. And at Tony and Tina's Wedding, it's a Broadway show. You walked into a church, right? You go to the church, you sit down, and you're part of the wedding, right? So, like, the actors are coming up and talking to you. It's like a Goodfellas kind of wedding, right? Mm-hmm. And so the whole time, like, and then you go from the church over to the party after the wedding.
Be part of the show. Yeah.
And you're like, you're doing the funky chicken dance, and you're participating, right?
Right.
It's like you're part of the show. You're not just watching. You're an active participant. Your participation makes the show more complete. And I think that's essential to all of us. You are part of this show. This is not something that other people are doing. This requires civilian involvement, right? Even the militia. If you look at Black's Law, it talks about the civilian militia is every able-bodied man, woman, and child who is a resident of this country has an obligation to see the rights of our Constitution being violated and to do something and act decisively. That's our responsibility.
Right. Exactly. And I think most people, if they know what their rights are, one of the things they've been doing though is kind of confusing people as to what is their right. And you have the right to health care. You have a right to Social Security. What are these rights? They're not in the Constitution, right? But so they're replacing the rights, right, that people think that they have, with things that they shouldn't have, right? That take away your own self responsibility, right? So,
Yep.
so be responsible for yourself. I'm not saying that we shouldn't have healthcare system, nothing like that. But when you have the premise set up that you're supposed to have it for free, that's what it's going to be worth what you pay for it. And then you do that for the whole society. Whole society ends up with garbage for healthcare.
Well, many years ago, I was a diabetes care specialist for Novo Nordisk, right? And so I sold insulin, right? And the insulin that I sold, I competed against an insulin that was made by my same company, and they were identical. They had the exact same results, right? There was nothing to leverage, right? So they had a patient education program. So I said, well, this is really, the service we give, so I justified it at that time, saying, well, we're going to give really great service. And I tried to do it. But what happened was, I realized then that they weren't able to make decisions. Doctors could not make decisions anymore. So the running joke back then was, if you want to go into medicine in the future, you're going to have to go into insurance, right? Because the insurance companies are dictating what doctors can prescribe. So again, you can go on the Speed Project website right now. I did an interview last night at like midnight, in the midst of chaos, calling lawyers and task force and all types of stuff. And I squeaked a little interview in there with this doctor, Dr. O. And Dr. O talks about how what is dictating the policy for the actual doctors, right? And he's part of a hospital system, right? And he said, and I asked him repeatedly, I'm like, so you don't have any say over what you write or what you prescribe, right? And he's resistant to it, right? And he understands it. But I got to be honest. You can see, like, he's like, but I have a job, right? I have a job. I still have to make money. I still have to make a living, right? So in his mind, this is the only way to do it because he's a doctor, and this is what their policies are, right? So it's kind of like working for Nazi Germany, right? And so these are the policies of the Fuhrer, and you have to do exactly what you're told. And if you don't do that, you'll be fired. Now, the evidence of that is someone I'm going to interview tomorrow morning is a pharmacist who, this pharmacist, she just got fired. And she got fired for educating patients on what is in the vaccine because there's formaldehyde and there's polysorbate 80, which opens the blood-brain barrier, and that allows the aluminum to take root in the brain. And she was just explaining it, saying, to make a more informed decision. Now, people still have the choice when they're done, right, to make a decision. But that is part of informed consent, is understanding the risks and benefits and the consequences of potentially taking this product. And then you, under the Treaty of Versailles and the human rights that we're all, we all have, is you have the right to say no. No, I don't want that. Right? I'm not going to have that.
Right.
But alas, instead, you have this whole movement to do something different. So it's something that everyone has got to. It's kind of like when they talk about the environment. One of the great things they talk about, right, is hey, everyone has to take personal responsibility, right? Then they have an environmental rally where there's just plastic containers like everywhere, right? So why is it that corporations don't have to take personal responsibility? Well, because they're making money, right? Mm-hmm. And my sons watch this show called BoJack Horseman, right? And it's this crazy world where half the people are animals, horses and walruses and spiders, but they all act like humans. Everybody in the show acts like humans, right? And so there's this whale who's like the big rich guy, of course, right? And they come to expose him for crimes. And the whale goes, and the woman goes, what if we expose that you killed somebody? He goes, I don't care. He goes, I did kill somebody just last week. he was going to hurt my business, so I killed him. And she goes, you're just admitting that? And he goes, yeah. He goes, a law was just passed that makes it legal for billionaires to kill people. Right? And I just thought, like, it might not be spoken that obviously, but it's true. Right? Like, oh man, it's an amazing time to live in.
Yeah. Well, that was just I was just thinking about Epstein being killed, right? And someone asked Hillary during one of her appearances, and I guess they asked, how did you kill Epstein? So I was like, oh, it's already landing at her doorstep, right? All this information is going to keep making its way there.
Yeah, I still personally, I don't feel like, yeah, we really, if Hillary Clinton gets arrested tomorrow, I'm still not going to feel like, wow, we really got him, right? Because let's face it,
Sure.
Like, what's going to happen? She's going to die of old age. We got her. We didn't get her, right? She raped and pillaged humanity for her whole life, and in the old age of one of her, 6 different manifestations of her cloned self, after killing thousands of kids and potentially contributing to the genocide, or not potentially, orchestrating the genocide in Haiti and all these different things. You can't move fast enough on this. But I will say that there were a lot of notices that went out. I don't know if anybody else saw these, but there's a lot of different groups, like Prepare for Change is one, right? Who they say they've been contacted. Of course, most of these groups, they believe the RV is about to happen, right?
Yeah.
So they think the RV is about to happen, and then you're going to have the white hats going to come out. The emergency broadcast system is going to broadcast, and everything else is going to be shut down. The banks are going to be shut down. And basically, you're going to have Armageddon, right? People are going to be losing their minds. You're not going to be able to get money for 2 weeks, and nobody's going to know what to do, right? And this is like the prediction of what people think is going to happen. And I understand where that comes from. That is that was part of the previous timeline of what they wanted to happen. It's very easy to kill people when you have riots in the streets everywhere and the banks are closed down. You can wipe out a good portion of the population that way. You can also justify like calming the population by spraying things like, the VMAT2 virus, right? So, or vaccine, through the flu shot. But so I know that there's a big stir about that out there. This is going to happen, and coincidentally, it's timed perfectly with what is really happening. The bank system really is on the verge of collapse, right? And it's not going to be restored that way. It's not going to be restored by a bunch of people getting money and everything that Dan just described. That's not going to happen. What should happen is that, for the most part, things should go along as usual, not to upset the collective consciousness of the people. Because if all the people start freaking out and afraid, all of a sudden you've got vigilante justice going on, and fathers are banding together to storm the grocery store, and then they're going out to kill pedophiles. It's not a good look for humanity, right? It's not going to create anything positive. So I just don't see that happening personally.
Yeah, I'm leaning towards there being a much let's say smoother transition than it was going to be. I think
Yeah.
that Trump has put basically $7,000 more in everybody's pocket, and so that's like yearly. So that extra money gets people caught up, so they're not behind, and then maybe allows them to stockpile maybe a little bit for the future, maybe extra food, maybe just 2 weeks, maybe 2 months, but when there are some interruptions, which could definitely happen, if you look at what's the fight that's brewing, I think it's going to be very smooth relatively as we disarm, say, the UN people that are throughout the states, right? Apparently, like in D.C., there were some photos taken of the UN troops in training, right? And a couple miles away are the Marines set up. So,
Yeah.
they're preparing for this, and the Marines could just basically go over to the guys at the blue helmets and say, listen, you're not going to go ahead and do anything here, or you're going to die. And I think that the blue helmet guys are going to basically say, yeah, it's time to go back. Right?
Yeah, I agree with that, but the one thing that is very real, and I think has happened, and I know this has happened to a lot of the military, that they're injected with all types of things that they claim are vaccines, but in those vaccines has been things like LSD, different versions of steroids, some products that we refer to like the Kim calls it Jason Bourne super soldier serum, right? Like Captain America type stuff, right? Where you have an altered perception mixed with almost superhuman abilities to recover. So I wouldn't be surprised if you have a lot of soldiers that have been injected with that, probably on both sides, right? And that you could have, it could really be on the verge of just erupting that way. At the same time, I have absolute confidence that there is a residential galactic force here on Earth that is working, as residents, as part of the cause that we're all involved in, and that they can't leave. They can't leave the planet. They can't go start anything new without making sure that we have peace, right? At least not for another 5 months or so. So I do believe that, and I believe that's happening. And I think that that's something that's going to be embraced over time. I think everyone kind of, at this point, they all kind of believe there's something, right? You have a radical group that talks about like they're not aliens, they're demons, which I think that's a stretch. They're not all demons. Not saying they're not demons, but every galactic is not a demon. But that is a surefire way that you will probably never meet one because nobody wants to meet someone when that person thinks they're a demon. But I think that they will do things that Kim has already talked about, like disabling the military, the Chinese military machines, all of their equipment when they were in Pakistan and they were there to start World War III. And they just put out a frequency and it shut down the machines. So I have no question, because I also know that the system had a frequency you could turn it to, and it would have turned everything on the face of the planet to dust in seconds, right? So the quantum system has that ability. Now, Kim has never used any of these terrifying tools that the system has, never. But you can see, they're there, so there's plenty of other things that are taking place. And I know for a fact, there's many things that have happened that we expected to blow up into something terrible that were completely disabled because of Kim. And not just Kim, but like the whole Earth Command galactic group there, which Kim kind of describes as like a United Nations of these other races on the planet. So, more confident of that. And I'm glad they're on our side, right? And I also know that, that they'll take, I guess they're taking, working with Kim directly. And so if I was part of the United Nations, just anybody out there who happens to know somebody in the United Nations, who is part of this, Islamic takeover, right? The new, version that they're going to try to introduce under the guise of, empowering women who they're then going to enslave and things like that, right? I would highly recommend you rethink that course of action, because I just don't see it being successful.
Oh, interesting. Oh, I just got a message from Lisa. She said my background is backwards.
Switching, it's fine on mine.
Yeah. I don't know how to.
Dan, can you hear me?
I hear you. Do you hear me?
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, I just looked over and I saw that my phone got muted. So I was just
No. I heard you.
Thanks.
You were.
Oh, good. Okay.
You were fine. Yeah.
Okay. Good.
I was just I just saw that note come in. So, but I don't know how to reverse that. Maybe is there? Let me hear.
Yeah, it has to look reversed to you. That's what it is. But
Well, it does
we'll
look
see.
it does look reversed to me. That's the strange
Yeah,
thing.
it's fine on my end. It might just be Lisa. It happened to us the other day.
Lisa, turn around. Just turn around.
Look away. Look away.
Look, just turn around, and then it'll be right. All right. Okay. Some other people can give me, I'll go look at the video later, see what it looks like. Yeah, so I wonder if I can do that on. Yes, I can do it while it's live. Yeah, on the live, it looks backwards on the live one too. So.
Oh, you know, I guess it's just mine that it looks right. It's funny.
Yeah, it's weird. Or maybe, yeah, I don't know. There must be some reason for it. Anyway, so maybe I'll look in here. Yeah, see, we're like digressing here. Sorry about that, guys. Yeah. Well, what else should we cover? I mean, I'm happy Q's back. That's one good thing. But,
So Q predicted to the day, right?
yeah, 93 days offline, because everyone didn't know what this it made this Q made this comment in a bracket, and then like spaces, 93 spaces, and then DK, and the bracket, and it turns out that those number spaces would lend it to say, you know, that it was down for 93 days dark. It was down 93 days dark. Whatever the actual whole words are, but I haven't figured that out yet. But basically, it's saying that it's exactly 93 days. So how did they know? A month before they went down, they obviously knew that that Cloudflare was going to be used to take them down, right? And they probably knew when it was going to happen. Right, so they also probably knew exactly how long they was going to be down. But the question is, did they know that the impeachment was going to be going on at this pace? I mean, it seems to me like they're driving the impeachment. Trump is driving the impeachment. What do I mean by that is that, for example, them talking about impeaching and doing all this stuff becomes much different, right? As soon as Trump comes out with killing Big Daddy terrorist al-Baghdadi, right? And what does a Pelosi need to do? She's got to get the good information about Trump off the narrative and bring it back, so she holds a vote. Okay, it's just this coming Thursday, so 5 days later they're going to have a vote. So why, right? Why did this now rush things, right? Well, if Trump knew exactly the day they wanted to basically have an event and push them, that would be the trigger, right? That kill Baghdadi, how fast can she get it together, and how fast could they vote? And they knew that they couldn't pass up October 31st to do the vote, right? If she's going to pick...
Good point, yeah, I didn't think about that, yeah.
If you're going to pick a day, I'm going to use some NI here, right? Natural intelligence. Or by tapping into the QI, I don't know, the Q intelligence here, the quantum intelligence, and to say, how many days, differences, so when is she going to hold the vote? Would she do it the day before Halloween? No. The day after? No. It's going to be on Halloween because they want the symbolism, just like when she, had this bracelet with the bullet on it, right? It's all about symbolism, and Q always said symbolism will be their downfall. So they made the symbolic day available for them. There's another symbolic day coming up because these witches are all going to do a curse on Trump on what day was it? The 20, I think that's the 28th of November or 26th. I forget what it was, but so there's another date that they're going to push out there. What we also missed also happening was the IG report coming out. It was supposed to come out on the 28th. Oh, it's delayed. Again, they keep pushing this stuff out, right? And the Democrats are falling in line. Why would Trump want to have an impeachment? Why would he want to basically push that forward? That's the question. You know, is it really fun? No. Well, I mean, I'm sure Trump is having some laughs about it with Q doing some high fives. You know, but.
Yeah, but he gets to bring out all of their crimes.
He's got to bring, more they do, the more they're bringing out. Now, who's come out of this, right? Eric Charamella. Now I'm hearing it on Fox. Well, we're not saying his name, but we know who he is. Here's the whistleblower. Well, now once they know and say everyone knows who it is, and they're not going to tell the population, but the population's already knowing from alternative media that it's Eric Charamella. Hello, we're telling you, it's Eric Charamella. Well, wow. It goes right back to Ukraine and the original Russian collusion. And Eric Charamella being a spy in the Trump White House, leaking classified information, which is treason.
Treason, yeah.
Which is so now he's now cooked, right? Everyone knows his name. They're not going to be able to keep it out of there. And what were they telling Eric Charamella? Come out and be the whistleblower, and it's okay because we're going to protect you. Because why? Because we're going to get rid of Trump before, right? You know, Nancy Pelosi having the bullet there.
Wow.
Symbolism, right? So why is Eric going to come out? Because he knows he's committed treason. Why is he going to be the whistleblower? Why? Protection. They're going to protect him, and he's going along with it. But is he going to go along with it when everyone knows his name? No.
Now, where did the name get leaked? I mean, was it leaked, or was it like brought out?
Dan, I heard it 2 weeks ago on Dan Bongino show. He said who it was.
Wow. He scooped it, huh? Good for him.
Yeah, so he was way ahead. Yeah, you know it's like I keep seeing he's got his tag team on there too, right? With his guy, and this is a guy from New York, and so I keep thinking this is almost like our show. Yeah, one guy from New York and one guy not. I don't know. Maybe I think I just seem like he's from New York. Maybe he is. I don't know. But Dan Bongino, he seems like he's from New York.
Bongino, sure.
Yeah.
New York is run by Italians all over the place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I love his show. He's great. But anyway, the way I'm just trying to construct this is literally saying that this guy Eric Charamella is not going to have any choice now when everyone knows his name. There's not going to be any reason for him to be kept silent because it's going to get on Fox. As soon as it's set on Fox, it's going to be set on MSN and CBS and NBC and ABC. Maybe not CNN, but it doesn't matter. They're all going to basically start talking about who it is. And then the guy's cooked. He's going to die. Unless what? Unless he makes a deal. Right? Maybe he won't be killed, but he'll go to jail. But that will be, where he's going to be able to now point to Adam Schiff and Nancy Pelosi. And who else maybe he'll be pointing out to? Biden and Brennan and Clapper and... and the dog's also excited about it. Can you hear my dog?
Yeah, we hear. I think it's hilarious that Brennan was like, thank God for the deep state because we tell them the truth, right? And the truth. It's like, really, you guys tell the truth? I mean, that's what you guys are known for, right? The CIA and the deep state. That's what most of us associate with the truth, right? I mean, come on. It's like laughable. And then meanwhile, but I had to give it to him. Like, what a great actor. I mean, he really played it up. Like, if I never heard anybody else speak, I'm like, oh, that must be true. And he was talking about it like, Trump doesn't like the truth. I mean, Trump constantly gives the truth. What the CIA doesn't like is evidence. Why does Trump keep crushing him? Because he keeps dropping evidence and facts on him.
Right. So, I mean, I think they knew that it was Eric Charamella all this time, right? They had the evidence. I think that they've known. I think they set him up. I think they set this whole thing up for this Hungarian phone call. The perfect phone call was perfectly scripted ahead of time. I think they just let it leak out information along the way. Hey, do you know what he said? Oh, he did quid quo pro, right? And they laid out the information, dropped it around Eric Trammell out in the office, right? And he said, oh, wow, this is going to be good stuff. He goes running to Adam Schiff and says, hey, we got something. He's holding the military, aid up, until he looks into Biden.
Right.
And they set him up. And it never happened, but they think it did, right? And that's why Adam Schiff wrote this this horrific, fake transcript that he read off of, right, of what it said, and because he didn't know, that he was going to be busted so badly.
Wow. Yeah, you're right. That's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, definitely a setup. Definitely a setup.
Yeah, this is still part of that military precision. There's some other information about Q that came out just a couple days ago. That the real source of the intel that Q is coming from is the Northern Virginia Army Brigade. That's the who's responsible for the intel that Q is relying on. They're in the information side or the intel side of things, and that may be if that information is leaking out now, it might be something where they're going to start revealing what Q is while they lower the
or some version of what Q is. I personally, I'm very confident that Q is an AI of some sort. Not to say there's not people, and there's lots of people involved. I mean,
sure. I'm just saying that the conduit for that. I don't know if it's the quantum system or AI, or if it's some other version. I don't know. It could be it's I forgot what it's called in the Avengers. Who was the one that became one of the superheroes? Is one of the computer.
Oh yeah. I know what you're talking about. The robot who had the gem, sure.
Yeah. So I don't know which.
I don't remember that either.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was like, oh, that was a good one. It was Jarvis. It was Jarvis. Yeah. The Jarvis AI, right? I mean, there are AI projects out there, right? And I mean, I was slightly involved in some AI projects. Like in my late 20s. So yeah. So I'm the AI is is something that military has been using. So to say that they're going to use it to analyze the political scene and what's going to happen back and forth. I mean, they've been scripting out everybody's life all this time. The intel, right? Here's the talking points that go into the news. The news anchors all read the talking points, and then all the politicians follow suit. I think it's the media that's controlling the politicians, not the other way around.
Oh yeah, I totally agree.
They're the puppet masters. There's the strings, right? You think it's coming the other way? No, it's going from the newscasters. That's why they're so arrogant.
I mean, I just think that everybody's. I know that the master planners of all this stuff is gone. The Rothschild, the various dragon families, they have no plan. Once their plan to bring order out of chaos by creating, genocide of most of the people on the planet, right, to restore the balance of the planet, which is ridiculous. Once they were told that that's no longer the plan, many of them haven't accepted that, right? They're still pushing on that plan. And
Sure.
I just think what you're watching now is they're just gleaning the field now. They're just taking those people out. Right. Like, okay, you have the option. I think a lot of people have turned. remember Nancy Pelosi had a plan. I've seen the actual FBI, report of this. There was a suicide bomber that was all orchestrated by Nancy Pelosi. He was going in to the at first he was going to the White House, but then he was going to go into the Capitol building, and he was going to blow up, the Capitol building. His goal was to do the most damage. He was going to do it while Nancy Pelosi was in Afghanistan visiting the NATO troops, and President Trump was giving the State of the Union address. That was the plan. Now, in that State of the Union address that Nancy Pelosi orchestrated, many of the deep state Democrats were there, and they would have got killed too. Mm-hmm. So you got to think, as much as she thinks she has control, you have to believe that there's some people in that group that are like, I remember that you were going to kill me, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, even if they're buying in and they're part of a big coven and they're part of all the sacrificial stuff and believing in their dark powers, and that they have a better afterlife coming or whatever, and it's okay that they blow up. I think some of them are going to think, I still want to live, and they're gonna. I thought I was gonna be on the winning team here, and it looks like I'm not, and they jump ship. But I think most of them are just retiring. There's a lot that are just not going to be in this next election cycle, right? They're going to bow out. So.
Yeah, and the communities where you have the greatest percentage of the stronghold, right? Which I believe are going to be, if we did some research, I bet they're the most heavily vaccinated as well. But these, they're all a train wreck, right? Seattle, Los Angeles, San Francisco. Yeah.
Trump
has been, Minnesota.
Yeah, Trump's been calling out Nancy Pelosi again, heavy. Go back to San Francisco and fix your home turf. He did this to Cummings, and what happened to Cummings? He died. Right.
I saw a quote the other day of Elijah Cummings, and he was like, "Trump will be elected again as president over my dead body." I was like, "Ouch, too soon. It's probably too soon." Yeah. But I thought when I saw it, I was like, "Wow, that's really ironic or coincidental, I guess."
Self-fulfilling prophecy, that is.
Yeah, so be careful what you say, because we're in a time of instantaneous manifestation, right? You never know what you can bring to life.
Yeah, this is not a train that you can stop. Is it?
No, no chance.
So what?
Well,
I was just say one more thing, since it seems like we're a break off here, but is that,
go ahead.
Trump has been, giving more of these speeches and talking really about, about how confident he is, and he is so confident and he's talking even to the press. I saw him today, and he made Jim Acosta laugh because he said, you're fake news and all this and that, and Jim Acosta's going, shaking his head no, and he's going like, and he says, but I've got a new name for you. Right? Very fake news. And they got everyone to laugh, right? So even Acosta laughed at that, right? He said, "You're very fake news," So he's got them. He looked presidential, doing this, right, and joking around, and he even got Jim Acosta to laugh with him about it because even Jim Acosta knows that he's really dishing it out because that's his job to do. He's just about mind control. He's just supposed to deliver the taunts to get the information bites out that they can spin, and that's all his job is.
Right.
I think I think
that's right.
I'm going to see them all. I can see them all losing their press passes for next year, though. I can see that the all new media. I think Speak Project should be there.
I think you're going to actually watch these become like where all these especially when money comes in officially to the people, right? Then the people actually have a say, right? Because look, we are going to set up the project, right? So I know for a fact, like we have, we're positioned very well to take over some networks, right? And if money wasn't an issue. So if we take over networks and we literally put all the same, quality of production, the same energy, the same amount of money or more, into promoting alternative, but not alternative, but just mainstream alternative. Like we're actually like, look, we're actually going to tell the truth, and to make sure we tell the truth, everything in this, these production companies, these media companies, networks, whatever, they're going to be completely grant funded to ensure that people always have one voice that is not pandering to the controlling factors that control the money. Right now, you have a whole organization that's there's no need to advertise. Right. The only thing that you talk about when you talk about a product or you talk about people or what's going on, you talk about it because it's good, right? And you want other people to know about it. Yeah. Because you support it, or it's bad, and you want to warn people, right? But there's no one controlling you. What you have to say. Yeah.
Yep. And we need to be able to bring out the truth and have it not shunned. The evidence has to be really put forward, and there has to be a system to allow things to come, whether it was about our history or whether it's about vaccine information or hey, there's here's something that is illegal, it should stop right now, and it should. There should be a mechanism to say, listen, we're doing something that's illegal, it's against the law, we got to figure what that is, either change the law or stop what's going on. There has to be a system that immediately goes into place and stops it, that is not relying upon a corrupt judicial system to make it happen. Right. So, and that right. In that case, there may be a place to have, let's say, I don't want to say an AI, an artificial intelligence system, because there's a difference between algorithms that are just executing code and then something that is self-aware, and self-evolving and things like that.
But it has its own ego, then it's a problem.
Yeah, when it has its own ego, then you got to have a little problem there. And the problem is that where the programmers all have egos and they build themselves when they're constructing these things.
Right. Good point. Yeah. Well, I was looking at it this way, even just even before we developed that, or put that into play. I mean, that's already developed, I guess, but before we even use that, just from a natural standpoint, the way that grant funding works. Once the grant is awarded, the grantor has no say over what you do with the grant. Right? They're not allowed to. So the fact that Child Protective Services is funded by federal grants, but then they're also incentivized, means that is actually quid pro quo, right? But it's supposed to be federally funded grants. Now, they could be reviewed and say, well, based on the review, you didn't help any kids, and you're running a child trafficking ring, we're not going to fund you this year, right? Because they're a private organization. Now, in like manner, you need to keep things privately funded, right? So it needs to be a private grant source, which is really what one side of the trust will be, right? There's this restoration of the people, and if you do it that way, right? So now you're granting the money in good faith based on the mission and the aligned with the original goals of the trust, and you're trusting those people to execute. Now, if they go out and they do exactly the opposite of what they're supposed to do, the next year you just do a review. You do an honest review that's public. You make everything transparent, and how they spent their money is transparent, and where things went, and not down to like details like people's personal information, but just generally like we spent this much on salaries, we spent this much on on paper, and we spent this much on the building, just basic things. You just put it all out there publicly. Then you know what happens? It's all public. You don't have to dive in and try to scrutinize this. You can track every dime we spent back to where it came from. And just by making it public, all this other stuff kind of becomes obsolete. Because now it's like, well, you can just check out our website, and it's standard. Any business is, a Green Lantern business, which this is actually part of our model. Any Green Lantern business, we post our finances. It's expected. Now, when you have transparency, imagine what can happen. Right now, I don't have to worry about you stealing from me. I just looked, at what you were doing. I think you overinvested in, bathroom products, but other than that, it's not a big deal, right? But you couldn't have a $10,000 toilet seat and just pretend like it's not there, right?
Right.
It's like everybody knows.
Yeah. Well, at least you know where you want to go to use the toilet.
Right. So if a grant is contingent upon reporting things that are happening, and share it, and let the facts be facts, and let opinions be opinions, right?
Yeah.
And both can happen. Now, I watched this today. I was speaking to this pharmacist who lost her job, and she said these things right in her. She wrote an email to there's like 180 different people in her little group down there that in the segment of pharmacies, and she shared facts. Right, she said there's one piece of research from an independent organization. Every other study is from the CDC. And she listed off all these different things she said, right? Every single one of them was an absolute fact. And they said, well, that's opinion. And they go, and she's like, no, they're not opinions. These are facts. And that's the thing that just is mind-boggling at times with all this, is that we look at facts and keep pretending they're opinions. And they're not.
Right. Right.
So, that's the facts, man. All right. So that's all I got, man.
All right.
Good night. I expect a triumphant morning. I tell everybody else to have the same expectation.
All right, sounds good.
Hopefully we'll have amazing news to report.
Yeah, I know. Lisa just sent something I just saw, but it's okay. We'll cover it tomorrow. Yeah, we've been on for almost 2 hours.
All right, Dan. Have a good night, everybody. Peace out from New York.
All right. Subscribe, share. Go ahead, thumbs up. It's important. All right, bye, everyone.